We are live. This is the UFC Vegas 86 recap show on sherdog.com. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me, as always, is the senior editor of sherdog.com, the great Ben Duffy. Ben, do you still want to be Joe Pyfer?
Well, no, not as much, for sure. I mean, I never wanted to be Joe Pyfer. The real question is whether Dana White still wants all of us to be Joe Pyfer.
Obviously, make a little joke about the main event as Jack Hermansson took on Joe Pyfer, with Jack Hermansson winning a unanimous decision. We have 14 fights to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. Before I do, shout out to all the people in the chat. I apologize. You can see I have swelling in my eye. I have like an eye infection, so apologize for that.
Well, it was a punch, not an eye poke, so don't even go there.
Yeah. That's why I look so ugly. I should have worn a hat or something.
Marcel Dorf, comment goes up immediately. Flattery will get you everywhere on this show.
Yeah, I'm looking rough. But let's get right into it. The big thing that was coming into this week is Joe Pyfer the real deal? The guy that was, one of the most hyped guys, prospects in the UFC. I know he got added to the game, and Dana White Contender Series. They're kind of hoping he'd be like the new Sean O'Malley coming off the Contender Series and really step up. He's got a very compelling story with the, very similar to Sean Strickland. Before we get into the fight, I got to ask this, and I've been seeing in the chat, and we love the guys in the chat, and I think the guys in the chat are, for the most part, really fair. Why do people want to see anybody who gets like a little bit of a fast track, or a little bit of hype, fail?
I think there are a couple of reasons. One, some people just want to watch the world burn. Like, whatever is supposed to be the next big thing, they just want to see it fail. That's okay. Number two is, if you're watching this show right now, if you're in the comment section, you are by definition a hardcore fan. And in a lot of cases, you're probably a longtime hardcore fan. And you probably have a natural suspicion of when the UFC is trying to sell you the next big thing, because you've been there for a lot of them over the years. Sure. You remember when Houston Alexander was for real. And so there's part of you that just wants to go, haha, wouldn't it be really funny if this guy that's getting the big push from the promotion just slipped on a banana peel? I think there's a bit of that as well. And I'm probably guilty of it to a certain extent myself. I'm instantly suspicious when the UFC is building up a prospect that looks pretty good on tape, but it hasn't actually done a whole lot. I think we saw a lot of that backlash just in Ian Gary's last fight, where what did he do that was really,
yeah,
like,
I know you're saying.
I'm sorry, his last scheduled fight, which didn't end up happening. Like, he just got shellacked in kind of on social media and in the public forum, and part of it I think is unfair, and part of it is due to him being anointed by his promoter as the next whatever. So I think that's part of it. It doesn't excuse it, especially when it gets kind of mean-spirited and unjustified, but I think it explains it to a certain extent.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder, I really do, if if I'm a hardcore fan and I'm not like the most knowledgeable casual MMA fan ever. Because what I mean by that is I tend to root for that to happen. I root for the hyped up guy to win. Say what you, I think it's maybe my need for MMA to become mainstream. Like, I want it to be up there with the NFL and basketball and World Cup and all this stuff. Because like, I'm seeing people in the chat and our guys are being nice. Our guys are really good. Twitter's probably going crazy right now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this wasn't a good night for the UFC. This wasn't a good night for MMA. No. Do we want to do it seriously? Like, listen, me and you, we love those, pack your lunch kind of guys. Mm-hmm. The Jim Millers. But do we want a whole UFC of just Jim Millers? Because I don't. No. I like the hype. I like the, and we'll get into it. We got to get to the X's and O's in a second. But like, I'm seeing people bash this guy. He lost 3 out of 5 rounds. He still won 2 rounds against Jack Hermansson. the number, I know the UFC, they said he was 11th. I don't know where he is on Sherdog. I don't think he looked bad at all. I thought he looked good. Uh, I think they fight a year from now and he wins.
That's the thing to me is we'll figure out what happens from here because yes, Pyfer lost and thank goodness the correct result came through, but he has very specific things that he can take back to the drawing board and fix for next time. If he fixes them, this is a hiccup. And we're going to be talking in a few minutes about what's next for both of these guys. I think losing right now this way to this fighter may end up being a good thing for Pyfer in the long run. Because if he beats the number 11 guy, what the hell do you do with him next?
Yeah.
Like say he's the same fighter he is now, but one or two of those punches in the first round catch Hermansson just a little cleaner and this thing is over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny how MMA fans and the way we react in MMA is so different than other sports. For example, take a team that is a young NFL team, like the new team on the block that kind of has a run, and they make it deep in the NFL playoffs, but lose a real close matchup to like a favorite, like a Chiefs or something like that. They become the trendy team the following year. Like when the Bengals lost like a heartbreaker to the Chiefs, next year it was like, oh man, the Bengals are the big thing. We don't do that in MMA. With MMA, when like the young process rises up and he loses to the crafty veteran, it's like, oh, he was never that good. It's so funny. The reaction is just so much different. And I know, individual sports and team sports are not the same as Bass is pointing out in the chat. Obviously, I understand that, but I'm just having such a different reaction than everybody else. Where like, I don't think Joe Pyfer looked bad at all. But let's get into it. You said the right decision was made. Obviously, I thought it was pretty clear the first two rounds for Joe Pyfer, the last three for Hermansson, right?
Yes.
Okay. There was moments, like I thought Pyfer had moments in the fourth, but not enough to win the round. I thought Hermansson had moments in the second, but not enough to win the round. So I felt like it was a really easy fight to score. I don't know if Chris Lee scored this one. He probably didn't because the scorecards were correct. Pyfer looked to me early on like a guy that, he talked a lot. I watched a show where he was getting interviewed by, who was interviewing him? It doesn't matter. But he was talking he was very pumped up. I'm going to win the championship. I'm going to beat everybody. This, all the shit I've gone through my life led me to this big moment. He came out like a guy that had just so much confidence. And he came out. His left hook was money. He buckled Hermansson's a couple times. Right calf kick to left hook combination, his overhand right. I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh shit! Like Hermansson looks. I don't like to use the word scared, but like shell shocked. Like, oh shit! Like Pyfer might have one of those. Oh my lord! Moments.
Yes.
And then, go ahead.
No. Well, no. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
And then it had a very and I'm going back to. Guys, the Super Bowl's tomorrow, so give me a break. And the UFC, for some reason, the UFC had to keep promoting the Super Bowl. Like anybody will, I know American watching is gonna be like, oh, the Super Bowl's tomorrow. Let me watch that. But thanks UFC for promoting that. You sold me. Then it was like what we saw in the Lions, and I apologize to all my European listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, but the Lions San Francisco game, where it was like one moment of momentum changed, and like the second half of the fight was all Hermansson. And the adjustments he made, he was the first, I'd say, 8 minutes of the fight, Hermansson was backing up, and then all of a sudden he just said, I'm going to go forward, I'm going to use pressure. You know how we constantly talk about pressure. I think it's the best tool in MMA. I really do. Like if you can get one skill set, the ability to fight constant pressure is something that is pressure. But jabbing, calf kicking, his defense started. He seemed like he was reacting to the punches. Like he kind of figured out what Pyfer was trying to do, where he really didn't get hit too much with clean shots. He still landed. Pyfer still landed some good shots, but generally speaking, he wasn't getting hit and tagged, or if he was, not to the same effect. And it was. I thought he just looked fantastic.
I I agree, and it's funny how my notes changed throughout the course of the fight because you and I both picked Pyfer in this fight. I picked him by second round knockout, and at the end of the first round, I felt good about that pick. About 2 minutes into the second round, my note is this reminds me of Rumble Johnson versus Phil Davis, where Johnson looked a full weight class bigger, and even though Davis was a very elite wrestler, he was so shook by the power that he barely tried to wrestle. He just looked terrified for 15 minutes. It really did. I mean, the most obvious turning point is when Hermansson landed that jab that, you know, hurt Pyfer's eye.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that was the heartbreaker. That wasn't the changing of the momentum. That was you got the momentum and you just pick 6 to quarterback.
Yeah. But that was set up by you. I agree. Hermansson deciding to apply the pressure, go on the offensive. And from there, he did just about everything perfectly. A couple people mentioned that while Pyfer was lighting Hermansson up with a lot of his punches early on, a surprising amount of them were glancing off of Hermansson's shoulders. He has this thing where if it's possible to do a Philly shell on both sides, he kind of does it. Like, you know, he hunches up, he tucks his chin really well. And I mean, Pyfer hit him clean in the face plenty of times. He rightfully won the first and second rounds, but you know, a good number of those glanced off of Hermansson's shoulders. They're still winning Pyfer the round, but they're not putting Hermansson in danger of getting flatlined. But once Hermansson just kind of flipped whatever that switch was, started moving forward, yeah, he did everything right. Like, because Pyfer understood what was happening to him. His coaches were yelling at him between rounds. He knew that he was losing when he was on the back foot, and he was doing much better when he was on the front foot, even in the later rounds. But Hermansson's answer to that, he stuck with that kick on the front leg, just kept sawing at that front leg. And Pyfer was so heavy on that front foot that I don't think he could have checked those if he wanted to. Like every time he took a big step onto that front foot, either to try for a takedown or to swing, Hermansson was right there, just chop, chop, chop. Like just brilliant stuff. 185 is generally speaking not a super high fight IQ division. Hermansson is the smartest fighter at 185. He just doesn't lose fights that he's supposed to win. And occasionally he pulls out fights that he's supposed to lose.
Yeah, I'd say like he's the biggest overachiever, like based on the actual skill set. I mean, he's not a great athlete. He's not explosive. But like you said, like he kind of had like a little bit of a rope-a-dope thing going on where he was kind of taking the best from you know, what was it? Was it Rocky 3 when he's calling on Mr. T to throw the big shots and he's kind of just deflecting them and then kind of coming back. I felt besides, and obviously this is the only person who really knows this would be Joe Pyfer herself, but it seemed like he was a guy that was like riding this huge confidence. And I'll go to Rocky 4 to like how what was the Russian's name there?
Drago?
Ivan Drago, yeah, I was saying like this guy's not human, and like his confidence started fading, and I think that was a big thing. Like, yeah, obviously it's cardio, but I think it's more of an adrenaline and that mental aspect, and that's when he starts backing up and really backing up. And he had moments where he like bit down on the guard and just kind of swing, and like I'm a super tough dude, so I'm gonna try to just bully you and gonna be more physical. The problem is you can't do that for long spurts. And then, to me, the most brilliant thing of the entire fight was the takedown in the fifth period. Fifth. I've been around wrestling too much this weekend. In the fifth round when Joe Pyfer's team is screaming like, Joe, you need to pressure forward. You're about, it's 2 rounds each. You're about to lose the fifth round. You need to pressure forward. And, it's been mostly a boxing match or a kickboxing match for the, 25 minutes, a little bit of grappling here, but mostly a kickboxing match. Joe's he's going to have that last burst to come forward, and you just dip down, turn the corner, and take him down. To me, that like using his pressure to come right into a high crotch, to me, that was absolute brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And
Made it look easy.
And then it was when that fight hit the ground, it wasn't only a confidence, it was like he just stole his whole soul.
Yes.
Like he just it was like the Pac-Man when he eats the guy and the like little freaking ghost runs off. It was like that was Joe Pyfer's like ghost running off.
Yeah,
Good.
I didn't think, because he took him down like 2 minutes into the round. So I didn't think that Hermansson had like quote stolen the round or anything, because I thought he was probably winning the round even before he took him down. But I was like, if Pyfer doesn't watch it, he's going to get arm triangled, because Hermansson is a good topside grappler, and it's not like he was just parking there and hanging out and catching his breath. He was immediately trying to pass his guard. He got the underhook, and I mean, he basically was framing up an arm triangle. Just brilliant stuff from Hermansson. Like just well timed takedown that kind of just took all the air out of Pyfer.
Yeah, and going back to why I think the UFC lost, it gets down to now like matchmaking. Like it's still like, yeah, but I mean, Hermansson's been around forever. The division to me with Izzy losing and obviously now, I mean, Strickland and then in now Dricus du Plessis, it's such a new, different division now than when Izzy was the champion for, lapping guys, that Pyfer 1 or 2 wins, he could be in the title picture. He could be the fourth down on the phone call list.
Yep.
Now with Hermansson, it's like, what do you do? He's got to face a top guy, but he's still so far away from a title shot. And who do you like? It just, to me, it just complicated things so much. Where if Pyfer wins, everyone's happy. They're popping bubbly at some, UFC brass is popping bubbly at some Vegas casino tonight. And now that tonight is like you're driving home. Like you get in your car and you're driving to, I'm assuming they live, in Vegas, but like the outskirts, and they're driving, they're looking in the rearview mirror and seeing the lights of Vegas fading away as they drive into the desert of where their home is. So that sad drive. I could just see, Hunter Campbell driving, instead of having, think about it. It's Super Bowl weekend, all the celebrities in town. You can be popping bubbly with freaking LL Cool J somewhere or something. Like that's not happening. So
yeah, I wonder if Dana was in the building for this one.
I don't know. I didn't see him, but maybe
because he very notably skipped last week's card. He went to the Conor Ben fight that was in Vegas. He was like, I'm going to skip out on my own creation, go watch some boxing. I wonder. I wonder if
always such a bad luck. What are you doing, anyways? So what are you doing with Hermansson?
Well, I built because it was the main event and I was going to have an answer quickly. I built a whole matrix. Like if Hermansson loses, if Hermansson wins. If Hermansson wins, I already had Nasruddin Imavov's name on there. So when he called him out, I'm like, well, perfect. Great minds think alike. Because what you said is perfect. Hermansson still has so much to do to get into the title picture. Even though he won, he's still the guy you build an up-and-comer off of, considering that Imavov won last week but wasn't ultra impressive. He didn't put the kind of stamp on it that you would have hoped. I'd say Hermansson versus Imavov, and the fact that he thinks so himself makes me think that he's realistic about his place in the division right now.
Yeah, like that's exactly in my head too. I mean, I agree. He said it, but I wrote it down like right before, and he called him out. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Yeah, like that shows he's even intelligent. I mean, I remember when he was coming up the rankings and he had like a list, and he was like that guy, like he knew where he was in the he knew UFC's, he knew Sherdog. I vote on it, and I don't know where they are, but he did. Because when you think of the other options in the division, I mean, you have Strickland. Okay, they've already faced each other. Like Strickland's such a big personality, like the UFC's not going to want to use that. You have Cannon, they already fought each other. I guess you could do a rematch, but like a rematch nobody's calling for. The Whitaker Costa winner is going to have too much hype moving forward. That doesn't make sense. The loser of Whitaker Costa, if Whitaker lost, maybe. Costa, if he lost to me, if I'm Hermansson, I'm past that now. Chimaev, they're not going to do that. He's got too much hype. It's like, I think that was the one guy, and he called it perfectly. I don't think he had to call it out. Like he was going to make a match no matter what. Maybe by calling him out, he can get himself like a main event, like another fight night main event.
Maybe. And the thing is, if 3-4 months down the road, Hermansson beats Imavov, then he could be like, okay, UFC, if you keep feeding me these up and comers, I'm going to keep pissing in your Wheaties. Maybe you need to put me on the track against a higher ranked guy. Yeah.
Because in every matchup, there's got to be one guy who's ranked higher than the other. Like that people say, I want to face people ahead of me. Well, if everyone said that, we would never have a matchup made.
Yeah.
Or at least of ranked fighters. Yeah, I think it was absolutely brilliant. The fact that Imhoff just fought a week ago too is also like good timing. Bearing. I know they both went 25 minutes, so obviously one of them could have sustained an injury, but if they're healthy, they're on the same time frame and everything. Joe Pyfer. Now this is really tough because now that you've put it, once you put someone in a main event status, until they lose 3 or 4, like to me, like if you're the natural scale of going down and up, they kind of fall together. Like if you go main event, maybe now you fall to co-main event, then you fall to like main card, then you fall to like higher prelims and then low like that's, and then it goes the same way going up. Like you kind of, I can't drop them too far now because you put them in a main event.
I mean, I'm dropping them some because you got to take advantage of the fact that he lost and get him some rounds against, people where he can keep developing, see if he can come back from the kind of strategic and tactical blunders he made here. Because again, if he beats the UFC's number 11 guy, then we're talking about him versus Whitaker, Cannonier, Costa, and probably he definitely is not ready for Robert Whitaker after tonight, whether Whitaker loses to Costa or not. Like just I'm putting him.
I'll tell you what I was gonna do. I was either gonna give him Whitaker if Whitaker wins, or I was gonna give him Chimaev. Like that's how high I was going. So yeah, okay. Sorry, finish what you were gonna say.
I'm giving him one of the middleweights that lost tonight. I'm giving him Petrosian or Peteria and just letting him come back. If he murks either of those guys, great. Then the hype train is right back on the track.
See, I was going a little bit high just because of the promotion you've put into him. Because now if you put him against like Petrosian, you're talking mid prelims, for pay-per-view, or I guess if fourth from the top of a fight night. I'm putting him against Chris Curtis. Chris Curtis can sell a fight. Joe Pyfer can sell a fight. They fight very similar. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Anthony Tardif says Pyfer versus Abus. I mean, Abus has lost 2 in a row. That would put
that poor guy.
That would put him in definitely kind of Petrosian, Peteria territory for me as like a guy that we thought of as a hot up and comer that has, lost some along the way and is, he's not on the fast track himself anymore.
Yeah.
Jade Bunky of the MMA mic drop is just he dropped more than the mic there. He just dropped the shovel. Wow.
Let's continue the ball rolling just because we got 13 more fights to go. This one will probably be pretty quick because the fight was pretty quick. 2 of our favorite fighters on paper, Danny Ige took on Andre Fili. I guess they sparred each other a lot. They trained with each other a lot. Danny Ige was not happy about that, and he let Andre Fili know with a absolutely spectacular walk-off, one punch. Danny Ige has power. You get in his range, he steps in, he connects. I mean, it's one of the best knockouts you'll see all year.
It was a one-punch knockout that got a second punch anyway. Ige could easily have walked off, but we get the punctuation mark. Just an absolutely brutal overhand left, then an equally brutal ground strike. The ones that make me cringe are always the ones where the guy is horizontal, like ear perpendicular to the canvas, and he gets hit on one side of the head, and it just basketballs his head off the. Yeah, it was brutal.
It's like what's that movie with Ed Norton where he plays a skinhead and he freaking stomps on the guy's face on the curb.
Oh, American History X.
Yeah, that's you just freaking stomp the guy's head with a punch.
Yeah, Feely got curb stomped.
Juice Expectation. I a lot of times so. A lot of when I'm watching is I'm not watching the in between fights because I'm taking notes, I'm writing things down. I'm like, who's next? Elon Musk was supposed to be there. Did we see him?
He was supposed to, but I don't think we saw him.
Yeah, because if Elon Musk is there, then they know he's going to be there. Like he's not going to not hang out with Elon
Musk. Dr. Phil was there. So if we got pictures of Dr. Phil and not of Elon Musk, that would be weird. And also, Musk was talking about like buying up all the tickets and making it his own kind of like private party, the same way Facebook guy Zuckerberg did a year or 2 ago. So I guess Musk.
Imagine being that rich. I mean, it is the apex, so you're not buying that many seats, but
Yeah.
Like he could do it if they did it in the spear. Like he's that rich, so you know he could have bought the whole strip. Like you're driving into Las Vegas and like, oh sorry, the city's closed today.
Yep.
Elon bought the city so he could show off to some woman, you know, one girl, who's 19 probably. I mean Ige, you know, I'm not gonna get super excited about him. This is kind of what he's done. You know, he's always kind of had that like next step up. He beats the guys out of the top 15. It's the, you know, top 10 guys he struggles. But I mean, his boxing's fun. I mean, he's a very classic box style, high guard, keeps everything tight, steps in, his foot placement so on. That's why he draws so much power. So, I mean, are you getting excited about Ige? I mean, he's on a 1-fight winning streak. He lost to Bryce Mitchell's last fight. I know a lot of people thought he should have won that fight, but regardless, he's still coming off a loss. Like, I'm excited to see him fight because he's fun.
50K is the perfect nickname for this guy. And what I said on the preview, like, kind of holds. For a guy that is as exciting as he is, it's kind of predictable. He doesn't lose fights he should win. And only rarely does he step up and tag somebody that's better than him. Like, he's a 7 at everything. If somebody's a 9 or a 10 at something, they're probably going to beat him. Like, I know he beat Edson Barboza, but I didn't agree with the decision. You know, so someone like Edson Barboza, Bryce Mitchell, Calvin Kattar, they're going to be able to impose their game on Ige and they're going to win. If you're not way better than Dan Ige at something, he's probably going to beat you. And once in a while, it's going to be ugly. Yeah, so he's the guy he always was. And that's not a bad thing to be.
Yeah, he's a guy that weight class where, you know, if you're a top guy, if you're, you know, even when you're wrestling, like, yeah, I'm going to beat this guy, but it's just going to suck. The guy's tough. Like, I know I'm going to beat the guy. I'm not going to ever be in trouble, but like, it's going to be annoying. And that's what he is. It's, you know, so what are you doing with him? Because he's kind of tough to match because he's kind of fought everybody.
I disagree with Bob Chimson here. All the Barboza decision got him was a fight with Calvin Kattar, where, I mean, that set him back to 0. Whether he'd beat Barboza or not, he'd be where he is now. A guy just outside the top 15, beating the people below him, losing to the people ahead of him. Like, one aberrant decision, like 3 or 4 years ago, just doesn't change who he is now.
Yeah, Bob Chimson, in fairness, he's our official troll. Like, we like him because he's our troll. But yeah, take everything Bob Chimson says. What it's worth.
Yeah, several people have called for Ige versus Giga Chikadze. I don't hate that. I was just going to say remake the Lerone Murphy fight, and that's partly due to what Murphy has earned. Like, Murphy is still undefeated in the UFC, even if it's been a bumpy road to get there. He deserves a guy that has a bigger name and presumably is higher ranked than him. That's still Ige. And maybe Ige will be the guy to actually pull a fun fight out of him. Who knows? But I don't hate Ige versus Chikadze either.
Yeah. So I always like I'm thinking about him, and I'm thinking about if I'm promoting, I'm going much higher than you up the rankings. Simply when a guy has a walk-off knockout like that, there's always like more hype than they deserve, because obviously that's the highlight of watching MMA. Is that crazy? Holy shit! Like, remember when the UFC used to make the ultimate knockout video?
Oh yeah,
like, yeah, that was the selling. They didn't have stars, so that's how they had to sell to people. Like, this would make the ultimate knockout. If they kept making them ultimate knockouts to 28, you know, they'd have Ige in there. I'm going the loser, and this is I'm going the loser of Brian Ortega versus Yair Rodriguez. Because to me, the loser of that match is so far out of title contention that just give him a fun match against Dan Ige. Like, pay-per-view opener, maybe you go fight night main event, maybe probably go fight night co-main event, whatever. That's what I'm doing. You like that? Or, I mean, it's featherweights. I know you like featherweight, but
pull any 2 names in the top 25 out of a hat, and I'm fine with it. And I agree that, and like, Bob Chimson is super mad because, you know, we keep on wanting Ige to get higher ranked fighters, you know, when he's winning fights. But at least here it is a higher ranked fighter that, like you said, is way out of the picture of title contention. The question would be for me if someone like Ortega would even take it, because Ortega is a once or twice a year fighter as it is now. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Before that, how is this fight on the main card? And why do the UFC keep hyping? Like, why does Ilia Pretorius keep getting like marquee matchups? But he took on, and I'm going to butcher his name, Robert Bryce Jack, with Pretoria making probably the best showing of his career, winning by unanimous decision. That said, obviously not everything was perfect as he actually missed weight as he moved down to middleweight. I'm going to give him a pass. When you take a fight on a week's notice, going down, your first time making weight, he missed by I think it was like a pound and a half or something like that. It wasn't like a huge miss. I'll give him a little bit of pass, but dude looked good. Like, I mean, again, UFC newcomer, Brisket was a guy that we both picked, but and I think we both had a really good evening making picks. So this was one we didn't, but not a guy that we were like, oh yeah, this guy's the future of the division.
No.
Pretoria looked, I thought, I mean, he looked huge for the division. First of all, he looked faster going down. A lot of variety. I liked his hand fighting, the changing of the attacks, the rhythm, the feinting the draw on attacks, feinting shots. He would feint a shot to throw it, fake these going down low. They go to the top. Then he would shoot a shot. A hand fighting really good. Showed power. Like, I thought he looked good.
He did. If nothing else, because for all we know, Brycek will end up losing 3 in a row and wash out of the UFC. But at the very least, we learned that Pretoria's best place in the UFC is at 185. I'm going to assume that given a full camp, he can make 185 no problem, considering he took this on short notice, weighed in at like 187 or 188, and had 3 rounds of cardio. I'm going to assume that given an 8 to 12 week camp, he can make 185 no problem.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm at least interested to see what comes next for him. And I dogged this guy on the preview.
So did I.
Yeah. Because neither of us are big believers in Brycek, but I was like, Brycek comes forward and swings hard. He's probably going to knock this dude out in the first round.
Yeah.
And I was dead wrong. So, yeah, Ilia Pretorius, still just 27 years old, may have found a weight class that suits his body. And you can tell, since all the cards of the last month have been like half middleweights, the UFC needs some middleweights to step forward from the crowd. Maybe he has a new home here. Maybe we'll look back a year from now and be like, man, remember when Ilia Pretorius was a terrible light heavyweight? Look at him now. So
yeah. I mean, that's the big thing, being only 27. Like, I tweeted this out, like, maybe I got a wrong read about this guy. Like, again, it's when you have a really brilliant performance, it's like, who'd he beat? But like, to me, he's got the arrow going up. Like, yeah. So before that, one of the fights that I know I was really excited about, and usually we're on the same scale. Brad Tavares took on Gregor Rodriguez. Gregor Rodriguez winning by 3rd round TKO. I'm going to ask my infamous question I always like to ask you. Was this a good showing by Gregor Rodriguez, or is Brad Tavares finally shot?
I'm going to go with this was a good showing by Gregor Rodriguez. I don't think it's his best win in the UFC, but it might be his best performance. You and I, this is one of the fights.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, I'd have to look at who he's beaten and go over his record, like what's the best win. But it was the one where I was like, oh shit. Like,
you and I disagreed on this one. I took Tavares, and I mean,
sure,
he was a greater than 2-1 underdog. It was a little bit of a flyer, but even at the end of the second round, where I had Rodriguez ahead 2-0, and both rounds were pretty competitive, I still felt okay about my pick. But then Rodriguez is the one that turns the Jets up in the 3rd round. Just everything that I would want Gregory Rodriguez to do in order to maximize whatever his potential is, to reach whatever his ceiling is, he did. Mixed in enough of his wrestling, didn't just try to swing with a good boxer in Tavares. Have being the fresher guy in the 3rd round. His gas tank has had a bit of a question mark around
lately,
it. It always will.
It looks good lately. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not an issue anymore. Like, he's figured the problem.
I'm with you. Like, well, for one thing, this is his first fight in 2 years to go past the middle of the 2nd round. So, I mean, that's one solution for your cardio problems right there. But 2, I agree. This is not the guy that lost a weird splitter in a terrible fight with Armen Petrosyan back in 2022. It's just a combination of probably being able to train full time and changing his approach just enough to kind of manage his gas tank. Because physically, he looks about the same. No, I thought he looked great tonight.
I like that. To me, like the adjustments he made. Like at first, you know, he came out very aggressive, doing like what we've seen him before, and he just like big brother Brad Tavares. He was bullying him. Like, oh man, he's just like beating him ferocity, like knocking him down. You know, at one point, like, head snapped him, and I'm like, dude, he looks like a big brother beating up, you know, his little brother or something. But then, you know, as the fight, the second round, he kind of slows down a little bit, but he still wins the second round with having better technique, and the third round just put it together. I mean, he looked faster than I've seen. He's always had power. Obviously, his ground game is incredible. Kind of, you know, the theme tonight is middleweight. A lot of the big matchups were middleweight, and it's kind of a similar question I asked earlier. Like with middleweight wide open, middleweight's wide open until Bo Nickel takes over, which know, is good. But
any minute now.
Yeah, but you know, for the time being, like run to the head of the pack before you know Bo comes. But enjoy those moments. But it's wide open. I mean, did this performance? Because like, you know, the question was, did he look good or did Brad Tavares look shot? And obviously, I think the answer is always somewhere in between. Like that's kind of the cheap way. I when I answer is always somewhere in between. But are you believing like Rodriguez can make a run?
It's middleweight. It's so wide open. What does he really need to do? Win 2 more fights? And he's at least showing.
If his next fast fight was against the current champion Dricus Du Plessis, like I'm probably taking Du Plessis, but he's not a big underdog, is he? It's not like I would possibility that he wins.
Yeah, especially because Du Plessis is still the kind of guy who often kind of loses fights until he comes back to win. Like, no. Rodriguez, he seems to be fixing the problems. It's easy to forget since he has that like weathered face that he's still just 31 years old. That is not old at 185.
Yeah. Well, you look at his body and it like screams elite athlete. But then you look at his face and you're like, you think he's Joe Romero like age.
Yeah. He's like a giant Francisco Trinaldo. I mean, he nuked Junyoung Park a couple years ago. Park should be 5-0 since then. Like he got kind of jobbed against Andre Muniz back in December. Junyoung Park had won 4 fights coming into that. Should have beaten Muniz. Like that's like a top 15 quality win for Rodriguez. That win has aged incredibly well. Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about him.
I'm going to give you a name, and I've actually saw somebody put in the chat. I think this is the matchup I want to see next because of the challenges the guy I'm going to say gives him, and that's Roman Dolidze. It'd be a guy that he can't like big brother him, can't bully him, wouldn't have a huge advantage if the fight hit the ground. I think he would have a striking advantage, but he wouldn't have necessarily a power advantage. That's a step up I want to see Rodriguez take next.
I'm A-okay with that. I mean, honestly, that's as good as anything I came up with. And the thing is, the way that his gas tank has been looking recently, I like him against Dolidze. Like, no tape, I like him against Dolidze because I still don't trust round 3 Roman Dolidze.
I think you're right. I've not been a Roman Dolidze believer. I think you're right. Before that, Michael Johnson took on Darius Flowers, winning in a decision. Darius Flowers looked really good for 2 minutes, and then he remembered he was Darius Flowers and looked god awful. And the worst part of that is Michael Johnson probably just extended his UFC career at least 2 or 3 fights.
Dude, I completely agree. Johnson is, he's possibly the most frustrating fighter in UFC history. probably the most frustrating high-level fighter in MMA history, maybe, just given how long he has teased us. But he just went out and in an uncomplicated manner won a fight he was supposed to. And we even had like a mini scare in like the last 2 minutes where I was like, okay, if Johnson gets pounded out here or gets like weirdly guillotined from a weird angle in the last 2 minutes of this fight, I'm going to throw something across my living room and I'm going to quit watching MMA for 3 months. Because even by Michael Johnson standards, this would be shitting the bed on an unprecedented level. But no, he looked great. His boxing looked good, but his boxing always looks good.
Yeah.
He was
got good speed.
he was throwing in combination. He was throwing kicks. He threw lots of kicks in the first round. He took Flowers down a couple times.
Flowers wrestling is so bad. I mean, it looked like Kyle Snyder versus like a 9-year-old. Like the guy's wrestling is horrendous.
Yep.
But when you talked about like the very end of the fight with, I don't know, it was 30 seconds, 45 seconds left, where Flowers was throwing up I think it was like an armbar from underneath. I was rooting for it to even though I picked Michael Johnson to win, I was rooting for Flowers to get the armbar because I'm like, that would be so Michael Johnson to get armbarred right now. That was just like I'm always once my first pick of the night loses, I don't care. Like 12-1. I don't care about that. Like I don't brag about winning picks. This like if I go undefeated, I'm gonna brag. Other than that, I don't give a shit. I mean, hold on, let me back. I do care. Like I want to like make the right picks. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing this show for as long, but I care more about being entertained. What's the most fun thing to talk about during the recap show? And Michael Johnson getting armbarred in a fight that he was like smashing a guy would have been funny. We weren't that lucky, and we get to see Michael Johnson for a little bit longer. Before that, Rodolfo Vieira took on Armin Petrosyan. Rodolfo Vieira winning by first round sub. We kind of knew that the fight was going to go one of two ways. That either Petrosyan was going to get a takedown and sub him, or he wouldn't be able to get takedowns. Petrosyan would start, taking over, leg kicking him, jabbing him, beating him up on the feet, and then probably would a unanimous decision or maybe a late stoppage. It was the first one.
It sure was. And I feel as though this entire card, at least the part we've discussed so far, except for the co-main event, like Dan Ige and Andre Fili, I feel as though both you and I have had a pretty realistic take on both those guys. But pretty much everybody else on this card that we've talked about so far, or every fight, has had at least one fighter where you're either in or out on their upside. And I've been proven either right or wrong about them. Vieira, for a guy that I wrote the hell off after he gassed out so badly against Anthony Hernandez and got, tapped out. He's done everything right, man. He's like reshaped his body. I mean, he's never going to be Clay Guida in terms of cardio, but he's reshaped his body to the point where it's not this brutal body killing cut to get to 185. He has enough gas to at least function in the second and third rounds. And aside from that, that's all it's going to take, man. His top side grappling in particular, because that, you don't win as many medals as him without being good everywhere. But at least in MMA and even in BJJ, his specialty was just being an absolute crusher from topside.
Sure.
You do not want to get stuck under this man in the first 7 minutes of a fight. Petrosyan's ground game is no great chop anyway, but dude, just watching the squeeze, like I figured Petrosyan was not going to tap and he's going to pass out. He tapped, I think, with like 11 seconds left. I didn't think he was going to tap. I thought he was going to go out. So,
well, in fairness, he didn't tap.
Oh, good. Cool.
Vieira. So I thought Petrosyan fought really dumb in the sense of like skipping forward, and I don't want to talk about this fight, but like the way, and I apologize if I butcher his first name, Balaje Oki fought Kwame, where he was just kind of like jabbing, kind of like throwing jabs to the chest area, kind of not overcommitting on any punch. Never. That's how Petrosyan needed to fight early on. And he was doing well. Like he was jabbing, he was winning. And then he telegraphed one punch which is exactly what Vieira needed. Vieira got underneath it, turned the corner, got the takedown, and then it was, it was the very beginning of the end. It was the like you're in quicksand, like you can panic or just accept your fate and just slowly fade in. Like, and he didn't. He panicked. Kind of similar to the Gregor Rodriguez thing, where it's middleweight that it's possible he makes a run. I'm still not sold on straight BJJ grapplers because to me, it's a little bit of a Mackenzie Dern thing where if she can get the fight to the ground, it's spectacular, but it's still not BJJ where you can grab collars of a gi and control like that. And, you get a punch in the face. I'm still worried about his ability to take people down.
I agree. And on top of everything else, it's much more of a Mackenzie Dern comparison because you compare him to someone like Gregory Rodriguez. Rodriguez has huge power in his strikes and has like much greater reach. Vieira at this point still just has one basic route to victory against any kind of decent fighter. And even at 185, it's hard to picture him getting that against a lot of the elite fighters. Like, I mean, never say never. He could sort of slalom his way into the top 10 or hell, even the top 5, but it would just take running into one guy with good cardio, decent power, and good takedown defense to bring the whole house of cards crashing down.
Yeah, so this is how I feel about the people who are elite at one really good thing. Like this is how I felt about, and I'm not just picking on Mackenzie Dern and Alvera. I kind of feel this about like tons of people over the years. Like I felt this way about Damian Maia, and I think of the one-dimensional grapplers, I think Damian Maia was the best one of all of them.
Sure.
To MMA, I'm not talking about credentials and all that. Like,
no.
But you can debate that because who are these people? I'm talking strictly at MMA. It's not so those people could beat anybody on any given night. Like if Adolfo were to take on Drake Duplessis, and that's who I always like to compare it to the champion, could he take him down in some of them? Absolutely. He can have that moment. The problem, I have less confidence in that match. Let me back up. I have more confidence in him winning that match. I have less confidence in him doing that 3, 4, 5 times in a row to get to that match. Where, okay, he could do the same thing to Robert Whittaker. He could do the same thing to Sean Strickland. He could do the same thing to fill in all the top. But he's got to do 4 or 5 in a row.
Yeah.
I don't have that confidence. Kind of like Mackenzie Dern. I think Mackenzie Dern could submit Weili Zhang if she got her down and got the opportunity. I think she'd really struggle to get Weili down, but if she did. But is she going to do it to Tatiana Suarez? Is she going to do it to Yan Xiaonan and, fill in Rose Namajunas? Or, I know she's at 125, but you get my point.
Yeah.
I don't think she can. And that's my issue with these, like, predominantly grapplers. So I'm not believing. I'm not believing.
No, I'm not either. Like I say, there's matchups might allow him to slalom his way further up the rankings than he might otherwise. But even at 185, where there are very few super well-rounded fighters, but I don't believe in him.
Yeah, Bass said it right. Like it's not that long ago he got beat up by Chris Curtis. Like beat bad.
Got beat up by Chris Curtis and went like 1 for a million on his takedowns against one of the smallest guys in the division. So,
and that's not like a knock at Chris Curtis. I mean, Chris Curtis is good. It's just that's the point. Like he's not, main event of pay-per-view level. So someone put in the chat. Actually, I think it's Dev. I think I might have copied Dev twice. I'm doing Muniz just because I want to see him against that good grappler too. Who like a high level grappler. See how he does against Muniz.
I like that just fine. And Muniz is another guy that has a lot of the same things to prove. Muniz is a little kind of baby-faced, and so the opposite of Gregory Rodriguez, I think of him as younger than he is, but he's like 34, 35 himself, and he's a guy that, like Vieira, his gas tank is still kind of iffy. So, yeah, I like that one just fine.
Jade Monkey says that he thinks he beats Chris Curtis in that rematch. I don't. I think Chris Curtis beats him. I think it looks almost identical to the first fight.
I mean, he could beat him, but
Yeah, he could. He could always take anybody down to someone. But I know. And again, the further the fight goes on, the less and less I stop. And not even just knocking his cardio, just generally speaking, like it's harder to get fights to the ground and less usually more effective because takedowns are just a big bit of an explosion thing. So obviously, as the fight goes on, you get less and less explosive. It's just like knockouts. Why is first round knockouts way more common than like fifth round knockouts? Because your opponent's tired and beat up, but you also lost that zip and that power to put someone's lights out.
Yep.
Speaking of people putting people's lights out, Trevin Giles took Carlos Pratis with a spectacular second round TKO. Talk to me about
If I may, allow me to snatch the mic for a minute.
All right, good. Take it.
Well, if you're any kind of regular
hold on,
viewer,
hold on. I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay.
You got to do it like Snoop Dogg and like nothing but a G thing. Like I was gonna jump in, and you gotta be like, "Give me the mic first before it bursts like a bubble."
Yeah,
You gotta take it like that.
Yeah, I let me bust like a bubble. If you've been watching this show for any length of time, you know that I don't claim to be a great analyst. If you're coming someplace to hear about who wins the foot position battle,
hold on a second. I don't know. We haven't got the update in the standings, but you are in first place in that one listener's he cracks
MM Aces, who was actually in the chat for a while there.
Okay.
Like, so
no pressure, man. Like our whole community
no pressure,
depending on you, brother.
There are, I generally know what I'm watching, and there are certain fighters that I feel as though I have a good handle on. For better or for worse, I have a better handle on Trevin Giles than anybody in this business. I said on the preview, and I think I've said on the previews for his last 4 or 5 fights, he has the skills to be a top 10 welterweight. He is well-rounded. He is good everywhere. And because of that, he's usually winning his fights until he loses. But in every one of his fights, there are 1 or 2 big defensive lapses, moments of inattention. That's just like the little exhaust port on the Death Star. If his opponent is good enough to take advantage, Giles loses, and he usually loses spectacularly. If the opponent is not up to that, doesn't have the offensive chops, doesn't have the presence of mind, then Giles wins, and he usually looks great. Here, he was beating Prates. Carlos Prates comes to the UFC as a well-regarded Muay Thai striker, and Giles was out striking him for most of 2 rounds. Takes one moment, and honestly, credit to Prates. It's not like he's just Luke using the force and flipping up the he drew Giles out.
If there was like a Brazilian Obi-Wan name like Felipe.
Yeah,
help me, Felipe. You're my only hope.
Yeah. He drew Giles out with a nice feint, then just lanced him with that left hand and walk off knockout. And I've seen some breakdowns talk about Giles' problem with durability. I don't think durability is really the issue. Most of the times, what finishes him would have killed an elephant. Like, keep in mind, he moved down to 170 after losing back-to-back fights to like Dricus Duplessis, and I forget who the other one was, but
he was beating Duplessis when he got started.
Duplessis is your champ now, and Giles was winning, and then Duplessis hit him with an elephant gun punch, and the thing was over 5 seconds later. Just Trevin Giles is going to be Trevin Giles, and he's a local guy to me. I root for him as far as I can while remaining professional, but I owe it to you guys to be realistic about his shortcomings, and this is what's going to keep him on the outside of the top 15 for as long as he continues to ply his trade. Like, there's just that moment in every one of his fights.
Yeah. Shame on. First of all, what's up with MMA Aces betting? How come I can't get in this friggin' league? Jeez.
Well, I suggested to him, like, dude, you should follow Keith's picks. No. Keith is better than me.
No. You're killing it, brother. So I'm rooting for you, man. No pressure.
On 2-man shows, he's just been picking one guy to make it fair to the solo shows, I guess.
No, man. Yeah. Keep it up, brother.
Yeah.
We should cheat, and he should just take the best score from, like, if I had a better score this week.
Like that. I forget what they call that golf thing where like 2-man scramble or whatever it is. Like
best ball, something like that. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my take on that.
We might need it. Like, hey, keep it up, brother. I hope you win.
Yeah, it turned out exactly like I expected.
Yeah, I was actually tweeting. I was writing a tweet about Pratis not throwing. I'm like, why isn't he throwing his left hand? And as I'm tweeting that, bang, good night. And it was absolutely spectacular the way he fell. He fell like a I hit my hit the bingo thing. Here's my pro reference. Like when like you got hit in the head with like the steel chair and they fall back like that. Like that said, I make a UFC debut, win by spectacular knockout is always obviously a great thing. Beat a guy like Trevin Giles in a UFC debut is like, holy shit, like that's really good. Like that's not your normal guy you face in a UFC debut. That said, I think Paredes we were both really high on this guy, based on coming in. We both said really nice things. I know we both took him to win, right? You took him. Yeah, you took Paredes. Oh yeah, you just were talking about how you call the perfect.
Yeah, we both took Paredes to win.
Yeah. So I think he has the raw tools. He's a huge guy, long legs. Obviously, he's got this, death punch power. The one thing I'm worried about is his output, because he was giving rounds away. I mean, some of it was, credit to Giles, but Giles is like throwing combinations, he's attacking him, and he's doing that like Izzy, trying to read him. But those guys can kind of coast a little bit. And if you don't land that death punch, all of a sudden you're like, 15 minutes up and I just lost a fight I shouldn't have lost because I was just too busy trying to land the perfect shot, too busy trying to study. And it's not a boxing match where you have 12 rounds, you have 3 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
You can give away a couple rounds in boxing because, you can give away 5 rounds and still win 7-5. But, I mean, you give it 1 round. Well, okay, you can't lose another one. You got to be perfect now. So, I mean, obviously he was, but that's something I'm going to write in my notes moving forward. I hope he isn't like that as next fight. I hope he's a lot. I mean, it could have been UFC jitters debut, I hope we don't see that. Speaking of UFC jitters, Balaji, okay, I apologize if I said his name wrong, versus Timothy Kwamba. Kwamba came in like really short notice, took over for who did he take over for?
Damir Hadzovic.
Oh, Damir Hadzovic.
The funny thing is,
he did his best Damir Hadzovic impression.
Well, and the odds closed up from like Oki minus 275 to minus 175. So clearly, apparently, the bettors think Hadzovic dodged a bullet there. But Kwamba is a decent featherweight who won. I mean, he won on the Contender Series at featherweight last year.
Dude, he fought a week
probably
ago. He fought a week ago.
That I knew it was recent, but
down a weight class, he moved up. Like that's I was rooting for him to win because I'm like, how crazy would that be? That said, he almost did win. He lost by split decision. That said, there needs to be something done with Chris Lee. I'm starting to think he's like the Bob Chimpson of MMA judging, where he's like, how long can I troll? Because there's no way that Kwamba won 2 rounds. You can't. There's no way you can justify him winning 2 rounds. Like, the first round is clearly Oki. The third round's clearly Oki. The second round was back and forth. I could see you going either way there. I actually did give it to Kwamba the second round, but there's no way. There needs to be some accountability. Tell me what round and why Chris Lee scored for Kwamba.
I have no idea. I'm guessing maybe the third. I don't know. The one thing I'll say is Oki made it closer than it needed to be. I think you just talked about Carlos Prates kind of spending too much time waiting for the perfect shot. I think you could say some of the same about Oki. He threw a lot of single shots, kind of wait.
He threw it. Well, yeah, I think he was that guy who's like, I got the lead. I can play it safe. To me, he's the complete opposite of Lions head coach, where he's like, all right, I'm taking the field goal. He jabbed, and he knew that Kwambi's really only having a victory was to get a takedown, and he just like was like, okay, I'm just gonna jab, and then the third round, forget it. Third round, he just kept. All right, Jeff Cobb said the third round. There's no way Kwambi won the third round. He didn't do anything. He tried to wrestle. I think he might have went for like 1 takedown attempt in the third. It wasn't even like a good, and then just got jabbed up for the whole round. Like,
okay, Jeff Culp, thank you for that. Lee apparently gave Kwamba rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah,
that's bad.
it was really bad. At least who would have thought that Chris Lieben, the guy who was freaking peeing on people in the Ultimate Fighter house, punching through doors, trying to fight like Bobby Southworth and Josh Koscheck while drunk. Who would have thought that's the same guy in Vegas sending in scorecards?
The voice of reason, like he's actually a decent judge, and he's
he's great. I think he's a good judge. So he's like, I don't remember Chris Lieben sending this. I'm sure it has happened. I don't remember him sending a scorecard, and I was like, oh, that's a bad one. I'm like, okay, like I'm sure it has. You could probably look on like MA decisions, and they have all the scorecards and stuff. But
yeah,
I'm gonna give okay. Like I thought it was an okay showing. I'm gonna give it like a pass. I mean, a change of opponent, last minute UFC debut. Those guys that I liked a lot. I mean, like I'm gonna give him a pass. Like,
completely agree. It was a lose-lose situation for him.
If you told me if I was a coach of Loma Lubume and you said, "Hey, we can like put a spell on your opponent and they have to fight exactly the way I want them to fight," I'd say, yeah, okay, have a low output kickboxing match. And that's exactly the fight Bruno Brazil did with Loma Lubume. And Loma just won a very clear unanimous decision without taking pretty much any damage.
Nope.
And never really had to get out of first gear.
Never did. Never had to get out of first gear, and that's fine because in her preferred fight, she doesn't really get out of first gear. She is a very Muay Thai style fighter in that. I mean, sometimes the pace seems furious, but it's not furious in the way of an MMA match where each one is trying to leave the other in the dust with their pace. Loma's happy to just stand in front of you and trade shots. And she was better at the range where Brazil should have been better, like kind of outside. She just was bouncing effortlessly in the range, kicking her in the body and bouncing back in the clinch. She was fine. Bruno Brazil tried to, I don't even know if she was actually trying for headlock throws because she was turning so far back. Like, I have no idea what she was trying to do. If they were like she was going for some sort of like scarf hold throw, they were the worst ones I've ever seen. And she should move up to flyweight, where everybody has terrible headlock throws. Bad. There's a reason Loma was a greater than 2-1 favorite.
Yeah, Big Marcel, aka the Ross Geller of MMA. I got that reference, even though I didn't watch that show. I really didn't. I just had to Google.
The theme song was, even if you didn't watch it, the theme song was everywhere.
Yeah, I had to Google the characters' names. Loma's, I mean, she's on a run. Like she's part of, like, we love her, but like there is some limited ability. Like there's going to be an issue. I'm going to give her a matchup that is probably the one to me that'd be the worst stylistic matchup for her. And if she could pass that, I'm a true believer. I'm gonna match up Loma against Jillian Robertson, someone who's gonna want to get the fight to the ground, take her down, hold it down, somewhere.
I like that. Okay. I mean, again, no tape. I'm thinking Loma just beats her into a pulp. I was like, there's two ways you can go here. If you believe in Loma as any kind of actual potential top 10 fighter, you can go that route. If you think she's just going to be a lot of fun, there's the other route. So if you believe in her, or you believe she deserves a chance at this point to prove she's a top 10-ish fighter, you give her someone like Luana Pinheiro, or maybe the loser of Dern versus Lemos that are fighting next week. If you just want to hear for fun fights, you give her Molly McCann or Karolina Kowalkiewicz. They're both going to give her a stand-up fight. It's probably going to be a blast.
I don't give her Molly McCann. She's too tough. I'm giving Molly McCann an absolute tomato can in England. Before that, Devin Clark took on Martin Prachnio. Like again, I think I had a really good evening with my picks. This is probably my worst call of the entire night, as Martin Prachnio beat Devin Clark. I just had a terrible read of this. I don't know if Prachnio is better than I thought. or if Devin Clark is just completely done. Like I was never high on this guy to begin with, but he's really bottom of the barrel in the UFC. And I think it might be B. I think it might be his bottom barrel.
Well, I can definitely say that Prochnio is better than I thought, since I definitely was shoveling dirt on him on the preview. And I'm not going to be all bitter and sour grapes about that and be like, well, Prochnio just won because Clark fought a terrible fight, even if he didn't fight a great fight. But yeah, like
he's struggling with the movement. He's struggling with the movement. Like Prochnio was moving, getting him gas. Like that was really good things that Prochnio was doing. He was a lot faster than Clark, which was, not the knock on Clark years ago. And he also fought in Prochnio's range. Like Prochnio wanted a distance one. The times that Clark was able to get into the pocket, he had some success. The problem is there were very few times. One or two times around.
I think he should have to get his USA Wrestling tattoo lasered off. Like if you were going to tell me that he was going to fight against Prochnio and Prochnio was going to have one of his very kick heavy fights and Clark would spend that little time on the ground. Yeah. Time to have the USA Wrestling tattoo lasered off, man.
You know what he is? He's like the guy. He's like the someone who like tries something once and then like buys the hat and like pretend like when I went down to Texas and I was wearing like a cowboy hat the whole week and like we did like the mechanical bull riding at Fort Worth, Texas. I have this cousin. I love him, but he's got some mental issues. He's like the Mike Perry of the family. he rides the mechanical bull on like we had to like tell the guy like, hey, this guy's kind of like he's kind of autistic and shit. Like put it way down, and he puts on like the slowest setting. He's holding on like two hands, like gripping like if he falls off the mechanical bull, he's like gonna fall into like lava. Like he's done. He's sweating profusely when it ends. To the point, like we had to get him. He's also like autistic, and we let him like drink. Like we're I don't know, like not a good show. But he's drinking. So I had to like go to like get him a water, buy him a water. He was like gonna die after riding the mechanical ball in like one. after my 60, almost 70-year-old dad and uncle wrote it, no problem. So anyways, then we go to and I know I'm giving story time. I'll wrap it back to this. Then we go to the bull riding, like the real bull riding now, like the real cowboys, and great, fantastic time. If you haven't done it, go to a rodeo. It's really, really fun. And then we go back, and my cousin is watching bull riding on his phone. Mind you, only been one time, and he's like, "Dude, I think I'd be good at this." So I tried it. I'm like, you just almost died on a mechanical bull, dude. Like that's anyway. So that's Devin Clark. Like Devin Clark, like wrestles in a wrestling tournament. Let me get the USA wrestling tattoo. Like, dude, you just took 5th in the Westerly tournament. Like, no, you don't deserve. Like, you gotta make the national team to get the like, So that's my story. Any belief in Prochnio? Like you like in this guy moving forward, or
no?
Okay,
no. Like I'm bitter enough that I definitely haven't learned anything. Like Prochnio is going to have to string a couple together before I will admit I was wrong about that. Like he's just any decent light heavyweight that's watched tape on him should be able to beat this guy.
Yeah, and Dev wanted me to talk about Devin Clark's wrestling. Again, like I don't know if he could take down my autistic cousin. Like it's that bad.
Clark gave Prochnio almost the only fight you could possibly give him to guarantee him a good chance of victory. Like just, he. I hate to go back to this cliche, but he kind of let Prochnio impose his will on the fight. Like, made it into a March and Prochnio fight because you know what? Prochnio gets outstruck by people that crowd him. He gets taken down by most people that try to take him down. His striking looked super sharp, but generally speaking, when other people have struck with him, they've made him look kind of slow. He gave Marcin Prochnio the perfect fight.
Yeah. Speaking of that, the fight that we were really pumped about that absolutely sucked. Max Griffin took on Jeremiah Wells. I'll say this: the Shillan Duffy unanimous upset special hits again, as both of us picked Max Griffin. A lot of people did not like that pick on the previous show. That said, I mean, if this was a football game, this I felt like the way Griffin was fighting was like 3 handoffs and a punt. And the
Oh,
way
if this was a football game, it's the final score is 10-5, and you're like, how'd they get 5? Oh, there was one field goal and there was a safety.
yeah,
Yeah.
the score is 6-3.
Yeah,
And
there's like 300 yards of total offense between the two teams. Yeah.
yeah, so Griffin's, he's handing off 3 times and punting while Wells is throwing like 3 deep bombs in a row, all incomplete, and then punting. Like that's and then that's what we got. Most importantly, this is the closest fight in the scorecards that it was a split decision. How did you score the fight?
I actually scored it for Wells. I
Okay.
gave Wells rounds 1 and 2. So
Okay.
I picked Griffin. I'm happy to take the W, but I scored it for Wells, if we're being honest.
Yeah, to me it was it was extremely close. I gave the second round to Wells. I gave the third round to Griffin. So the only difference, I actually gave Griffin the fight. I gave Griffin the first round. It was super close. Like
Yeah.
there was not much action. Wells had a little flurry. I'm like, oh, he won that round. Takedown. And then at the very end, Griffin kind of like flurried the last 30 seconds. And I thought he landed the harder shot, which is surprising of the two that I thought he actually landed the harder one. But again, the fight sucked. And that's the worst thing. And I'm not disappointed. Like the pick, whatever, but more of what I expected versus. And okay, so I pulled up MMA decisions. There's 2 for Griffin. There's 9 for Wells. So they're with you, thinking that Wells should have won. I don't know if every single scorecard is 29-28. So yeah, score it how you want. For 2 action guys, I was really disappointed. To me, Wells was just trying to counter and land that one big walk off, while Griffin, to me, was fighting not to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Griffin's on this. It's a big win over Wells, but to me, I'm putting arrows down for both of them. And particularly, I don't like how in the broadcast, to their credit, mention this. I don't like how Wells reacted to the times he was hit hard.
That's fair. We have to remember the guy's like 37. I think both these guys are 38. And I'm sure somebody mentioned that in the chat, but Griffin has that weird thing where he had that kind of undiagnosed or untreated health condition for so long that once he got it fixed, he almost had this new lease on life. It's very much like Jim Miller that was on this horrible run in his early 30s. Turned out he had Lyme disease, and once they got it fixed, he had a whole new act to his career. I feel like Griffin's in that category because Wells felt like a fighter who's getting old, and Griffin kind of didn't, even if I thought Wells won the fight.
Yeah, but Griffin still looks like the guy that had a condition. Like they're like, all right, you got to start doing your physical therapy. We're gonna start with boxing, really light, because that's what it seemed like he was doing tonight. Like, all right, don't overextend your hurt shoulder. Just imagine if someone who has never watched MMA like show a picture of Jeremiah Wells and show a picture of Gregory Rodriguez and tell people that like Jeremiah Wells is much older than Gregory Rodriguez.
Yeah, completely.
Before that, Zach Puaga took on Bogdan Guskov, with Bogdan Guskov getting a first round knockout. Dude, I don't know what's better, the knockout or I did his post fight interview. Dude got some mic skills. I'll give him that.
It's surprisingly good on the mic. Good night for Guskov. I picked Puaga in this fight. You picked Guskov. Good on you. He cashed as an underdog. And big
people
shout
give me
out
shit about it. So screw you guys.
Yeah. And big shout out to Dev, who pointed out in this fight, he's like, these guys are boxing from kicking range. Like, they just spent a lot of the fight swinging away on each other from about a foot farther away than they needed to be. I mean, it was like
Right.
watching.
Caitlin
It was, yes, Caitlin
right now is
Chikagi
saying
and
like,
like shadow boxing.
Caitlin Chikagi was like, what are you talking about? They were perfect boxing range.
Yeah, it's like, whew, the volume. Like, and dude,
Caitlin
even
Chikagi submitted it for Fight of the Year, Canada.
yeah, even when the finish came, it's like they were like, okay, stand as far apart as you can to just possibly reach each other, because Guskov was reaching in from as far as he could with that punch, and Paco was like leading with his chin like 2 feet ahead of his hips, and they just barely met in the middle. But yeah, Guskov is a big dude that swings hard. I still don't think he's a very refined striker. Jury is still out on his ground game, but if you're going to stand in front of him and swing with him, I guess he's going to put some people away. I'm not a believer yet, but yeah, this was bad, man. Like,
yeah, he's got power. To his credit, like when Puaga was going out, and Puaga, I believe he's never not. Oh no, he was knocked out on Ultimate Fighter show, so I take that back. What was great, like it was a really fun knockout because like Puaga like went down in slow motion, and like Gustav hit him like 8 times on his way down. Like that was a little like Phil Baroni-ish on Dave Monet, so that was fun. If he has improved his takedown defense, like the Puaga's closed the distance, try to take him down again. Puaga's not, Gable Stevenson out there, but if he has improved his takedown defense, like I'm gonna put an arrow going up on Gustav. Again,
yeah, arrow up, and again, this is 205. So if you've got one standout skill and the willingness to kind of leverage it, like if he's going to come out like this and look to knock everybody out, he's going to get a few before he runs into somebody who can stop him. This is, as again, quoting Dev, this is probably the lowest fight IQ division in MMA, light heavyweight, where you've got guys who have skills, but they're just inexplicably going to turn in a terrible, like, silly performance.
So Dev, sorry, Big Marcel asks, do women have to keep their maiden name when they fight? No, but I'm still got like I think it took me Nina Ansaroff. I'm still calling her Nina Ansaroff. I think I called her that like 25 times before I said Nina Nunes. So yeah, just if you change your maiden name, everyone's gonna call you by your maiden name for a while before it catches on. And the biggest star, I mean, like in Hollywood, like someone gets married, they never change their names.
Yeah,
and it's like whole marketing but MMA to a lesser extent.
And I mean, just to look at a few examples, Veronica Macedo married somebody who has a certain amount of name recognition.
Sure,
so she's Veronica Macedo Hardy. Mackenzie Dern married someone who does not have a name in combat sports. She didn't take his last name, and it turned out to be a good choice since they're divorced already.
Yeah, you can be Ian Gary and change your name. Ben's dying over there. If Ben dies, do I get into the league? Do I start taking my scores? Can I take over the league? I blow it. Ben comes back 6 months and I'll be like, dude, sorry, brother. You were in first place, but I keep making my wrestle boxers no matter what. Yeah, like Ronda Rousey, like she's not gonna change her name. Maybe on legal documents she does, but in the celebrity world, she's too big of a name. So I think that's anyways. Before that, Fernie Garcia took on Hyder Emil. I didn't like Hyder Emil as a prospect coming in. Again, he beat Fernie Garcia. Fernie Garcia also took the fight on short notice. He looked good. He looked a lot better than I expected.
I'm not as high on his performance. I mean, he won, but he's fighting a guy in Garcia that's 0-3 in the UFC coming into this fight. And even in the midst of lighting him up, he's coming in hands down, chin up. Garcia like tagged him cleanly a couple times when he was clearly rolling downhill on him. I saw a bunch of stuff that, man, he was first supposed to fight Shillan, then he was supposed to fight Melsik Baghdasaryan. I mean, I think Bagdasarian would have put him in a pine box for some of the stuff he did against Fernie Garcia tonight. Like I'm still not high on him, but he deserves. I mean, he won. You survive in advance. He earned the chance to show what he can do on a full camp against a fighter he's actually prepared for. It was kind of a no-win situation going in against Fernie. So yeah, I mean, I don't think he was terrible. I just like it's such a tough division, such a crowded division. I didn't see anything that stood out as like, oh, this guy is better than I thought. I think he's just isn't just another guy.
Yeah, I mean, I liked his volume. I liked his variety. I liked his body attacks. He showed some power. There's a lot of people that I respect that really liked him as a prospect coming in. People I saw that wrote some nice things about him. I think Sean Bitter's pretty high on him, and Sean Bitter's extremely knowledgeable when it comes. He's like the Mel Kiper kind of MMA. Someone I really like too. I've talked to him many times. He's a really good dude. I think Yanni the Greek might be high on him. That's someone obviously we respect his opinion a lot. Mincy Betts, I think, is high on him. The best part, I think that's going to be the most memorable about this fight was the standing TKO. Like his opponent did not, like Fernie Garcia did not fall down, and Mark Smith jumped in. I think that was obviously I didn't see anybody complain about it. It's appropriate. Just nice to see. Nice to see like when a referee recognizes like, all right, like I don't need to wait for this guy to fall down. Like it's over.
Agreed. And I'm normally very suspicious of standing TKOs. It better be just either a horrific beating, like, I don't know, Cain Velasquez versus Ben Rothwell, or one where the guy's just clearly done on his feet and his legs just happen to be locked in a way that yeah, like this fight was over. I have no problem with that stoppage.
Yeah, I always think about the standing, like the coming in. I always think, and again, I know boxers are around freaking since the dawn of man, but every time I think about boxing, I think about how stupid the rules are. Like, how has nobody ever like addressed this? Two things that always stand out to me: one, that they do 12 rounds. Just saying, like right away, you asking for draws. Like, why not make it 11 or 13? But the other one is the standing knockout. No, like the knockout where they like if a referee jumps in while I'm getting hit and I'm standing up, the fight's over. But if I take a knee, then I get count and I can come back and fight. Like, how batshit backwards is that?
It's
like
bad.
You're better off just like, oh, the referee's jump in, let me take a knee. And then they go, oh, you got knocked down, let me count. Like, how is anyone how many other person addressing this? Like, wait a minute. Me being super tough and not falling down cost me the fight. Like,
it's a dumb rule.
Yeah, it's a dumb rule. Anyways, don't come at me, boxing purists. Before that, the most disappointing, Daniel Marcos took on Richie Lang. I was at a fundraiser. I had to rush home because sometimes life happens and you kind of have to like catch up and speed up. But I still there's nothing better than like watching live and I feel more comfortable. I'm not rushed. Like last week I had to rush and catch up. Nothing worse than rushing home just to get a no contest with multiple kicks in the dick. And the last one, Richie Lang couldn't recover. Before that, Daniel Marcos looked freaking spectacular.
He looked fantastic. He was pretty heavily favored in this fight. And you and I both picked Marcos. I expected him to be the sharper striker, but maybe not by that much, because you can argue that, yeah, it ended up being stopped because Richie Lang took a shot to the groin, but those were the only solid hits he landed on Marcos were to the groin. Like it was a cup kick and derby. Marcos just looked sharp, good power, just the kind of power that comes from good fundamentals. Like he wasn't over swinging on anything, but everything he hit Richie Lang with just snapped his head back, marked up his face. Yeah, it's a shame because he was cruising towards either a nasty knockout later in the fight or just a very, very definitive win. And instead we get this. And worst of all, it comes when basically Richie Lang jumps onto Marcos's foot with his nuts.
Yeah.
It was the least intentional of all of the groin shots in the entire fight. Yeah.
Yeah. I still feel like it's almost should be marked as a win because I mean Marcos was styling him and he's calf kicking him and just teeing off. I mean he looked like he was putting in like punching back rounds, or he was working mitts. I mean he looked really spectacular. He looks like to me as a guy, and again, the Davey Grant fight being very controversial, but regardless how you feel that went, even to be close enough to Davey Grant early in your career is a hell of a accomplishment. Being undefeated in his career, he looks like a guy based on his personality, not being an American and stuff, obviously always got to hinder you. He looks like a guy that just keeps improving every fight, that has like a Jonathan Martinez, Mario Batista type rise where it's like they're not meteor darlings. They got to do it the hard way. I think he will get a little bit more of a pass because of the undefeated record. Like he'll get a little faster track because of that.
Yeah.
If he had one loss right now, he'd really have to take the slow road. But he looks like to me like a guy that could really rise and be a ranked fighter one day. Like I believe I'm a Daniel Marcos believer.
I'm more of one than I was leading into this. Like I thought of him as just he's an okay prospect. Hasn't met the right guy yet. If he came up in a different regional scene than Peru, maybe he's 11-3 when he gets to the UFC.
Sure.
But no, he looked really sharp here. Good on him. And if you can be quietly 15-0, he's doing it. So here's hoping he's able to to slip by a few more guys and just kind of get tested in a logical fashion going forward. Like this was a good booking for him. It didn't end well, but because he didn't get a clean win, maybe he gets another Aoriqi Lang type, before they really send him up the ladder.
Yeah, maybe you run it back. I don't know. I don't know what you do. That division is so deep. Like you don't have to make it. You don't have to rush this guy. Like you take a slow approach to it. I mean, they obviously that I'm giving him a big push when they're having him opening up the prelims of a pretty weak card on paper. So they're not like that. Really, the hype is really building. But all right, so we've covered all 14 fights. Let's close it up with doing some of the fun stuff. Do we have the awards, Ben?
We do. There are 4 performances of the night, no fight of the night.
Ooh, I thought that it was a very short fight, but for the moments of action we had, I think Emil and Garcia should have got fight of the night. Just because there was some pretty fun scraps at moments, but all right, I will give my guesses of. Well, no, I'll give who I would have gave, and then see how many I agree with the UFC. And people put in the chat, give us 4 performance bonuses. Ben, I'll put you on the spot. What would you give for 4 bonuses without telling me what they are?
Wait, without telling you what they are?
Yeah, like give me what you would give, and then
you
know what I mean. Like if you ran the world.
My performances of the evening would go to Rodolfo Vieira, Gregory Rodriguez, Dan Ige, and Jack Hermansson probably.
Okay. I mean, to me, Ige for sure. Like that's there's no way Ige didn't get one. I agree with Adolfo Vieira. You went Hermansson. What was the other one you said?
Rodriguez.
Okay.
Although I'd also be fine with Guskov.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Guskov because the way like when you punch a guy and you land like 8 more punches on the way down. I'm not gonna give it to Hermansson because it was a really close fight. Could have went either way. I was thinking of Mill, but then you mentioned Rodriguez. I'd go Rodriguez over Mill because Mill's opponent took it on short notice. Regardless of where Brad Tavares is in his career, that's still going to be a big, fairly big name. So, I mean, it's pretty infamous. Juice X is saying Ige 4 times. Just give him $200K. What do we have for the actual awards?
Your performances of the night go to Dan Ige, Rodolfo Vieira, Carlos Prates, and Bogdan Guskov.
Okay, so they want how spectacular the knockout of Prates was.
Yeah, and I cannot fade that KO by Carlos Prates. It was the I would have been willing to bet that would be the best knockout of the night. Danny Gay would have proven me wrong, but yeah, 2 of the nastiest knockouts this year.
Yeah, Danny Gay might be up for a knockout of the year. A little more stakes, maybe.
Yeah.
If that was like the main event or something, he might have it locked up. But yeah, that was a hell. He's gonna have that at his highlight reel forever, obviously. All right, we go for the good. Let's go to the bad. Let's cut some people. Let's get rid of some people.
Okay.
So the way the Shillan and Duffy show works, if both me and Ben have the same fighter on our cut list, we give them permission. I believe it or not, I had a lot of people tweeting me about cut. Like some people who listen to the show were tweeting who to cut this week. People were, I don't know what it was going on tonight between the Joe Pyfer bashing and people saying, oh no, the worst thing I did was correct the UFC's usage of consensus.
People were mad at that.
Well, you know what happens? And I still do think Jose Aldo is the greatest featherweight of all time. And I think Alex Volkanovski is extremely close. Like, to me, it's steak and lobster. Take what you want. My tweet that I tweeted about was, can the UFC stop saying consensus greatest featherweight, Alex Volkanovski? It was not saying Alex Volkanovski is not the greatest. No. It was arguing with the word consensus.
Right. No, they kept on arguing the wrong point. They were like, well, what about, this? What about that? No. Yeah, they were arguing against Volkanovski when that wasn't your point at all. It's like,
it's not unanimous because it'll never be unanimous. There will be somebody who says, there's people out there that says, oh, Tom Brady's not the best. Okay. Fine. You also believe the world's flat. Okay. But like, consent, if someone said, all right, I'll put you on the spot. Who is the consensus greatest NFL wide receiver ever?
It's harder now. For most of my life, I could say Jerry Rice. Now I'm like, well, is it Randy Moss? I don't know.
Oh, wow. Okay. So Ben proved me wrong. I thought it was a no-brainer. You're going to say Jerry Rice. I don't know. Who's a consensus? I don't know anything about track and field, but who's a consensus sprinter? I'm assuming it's Usain Bolt. I don't know. I don't follow that enough. But you get my point.
Yeah, Usain Bolt's the greatest sprinter of all time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Using the consensus means it's never going to be unanimous, but the large majority is going to go one way.
Yeah.
Okay. That is not the case with featherweight.
No.
It might be the most debated. I mean, what's the most debated? Would it be featherweight? I mean, I guess maybe bantamweight. Like, who's the consensus greatest bantamweight?
I think that's a tough one as well, just because
no one has a great resume, but yeah,
right. Between Cruz and then Dillashaw just disgracing himself so badly, yeah, nobody's really sticking out from the pack. But no, like, they were arguing the wrong point, and in doing so, they were making
my point. Yeah, like you're making my point. Which we're having a debate on who's the greatest is showing it's not consensus.
Yeah.
Anyways, what were we talking about? Oh, we're talking about cutting people. So
yeah,
I got 4.
I have 1, 2, 3. Do I have 4? Yeah, I have 4 as well.
Okay. Let's give me a first one.
Fernie Garcia. I feel bad cutting a guy that took a fight on short notice.
Same.
But he was 0-3 coming into this fight. He's now 0-4. Like,
yeah, that's it. It's to me, he got an extra fight by taking this on short notice. Like, he should have been cut already. So yeah, I agree. So,
and almost more to the point, because there's someone else I'm going to say this about. This was probably the last fight on his first 4-fight deal, so it's really just a matter of not re-signing him.
Yeah. So, Fernie Garcia, you can go fight somewhere else.
Yeah.
Who's your second one?
Zach Palga. He is now 1-3 in the UFC. Again, like, same as for Fernie. He's probably at the end of his first deal. His only win is over Jordan Wright, and that's just not a great win. No. He's lost everybody else just about every way you can.
Yeah, I had him on my list too. He's actually lost 3 out of 4. So yeah, not he lost back-to-back fights. So yeah. Who's your third person?
Devin Clark. Devin Clark has lost 3 of 4. He's lost 5 of 7. It's been a long time since he had. I mean, the Da Woon Jung win. It's continuing not to age well. It's been a while since he had like a real quality win.
Yeah.
Like outlasting Alonzo Menafield like 4 years ago is it.
I think Menafield would absolutely starch him right now.
Yes, completely.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see if we can go 4 for 4, Ben. And I actually didn't realize I actually put a fifth guy on my list. I had my notes were so compact. I had a fifth one off near my Bears list, but he's actually on my cut list. So you will be saving one of them. Somebody.
Oh, well, I might be open to being proven wrong, but Darius Flowers has just not shown much in 2 fights, 2 different weight classes, gotten beat both times by talented but flawed fighters. He's just not shown anything.
Yeah, I agree. So there you go. We have gone 4 for 4. The other guy, I'm going to say we'll save him because I put him off on a little note here and I didn't mention, but you didn't have. I'm going to go with your boy, dude. I'm going with Trevin Giles. He's lost 4 of 6. Another knockout. He's UFC talent. I do believe he's a UFC talent, but
you know what?
Consequences to me.
Because instantly I go, well, no, because I see so many worse fighters than him that aren't going anywhere. But then at the same time, just as like a humanitarian measure, because of the way he loses when he loses. Yeah, I mean, he's not on my list, so I guess he makes it, but I'm concerned about him next time he's out.
Yeah. Asa says like Game of Thrones. Yeah, we're going straight like Red Wedding. I just picture right now like Ben in his raspy voice screaming to me, Keith, just let him go. I swear on my honor, just let whatever she says. Let Trevor Giles go.
I'm singing the Reigns of Castamere for most of these mother effers though. Like
all right. Let's do Dude Seriously. I usually like to end with that, but let's mix it up. You have any Dude Seriously's?
I have a Dude Seriously.
All right.
Just I could probably rattle off 10 of them. The only one that I'll throw out there is Max Griffin was not on my cut list, but on principle, if you do this throat slash for the camera after a miserable 3-round fight that I actually thought you lost, that should just be instant pink slip.
It was like what was that? Who was the guy? Shoot. Oh, it was Austin Eckler when his team was down to the Raiders like 60-6, and he got a first down in the fourth quarter. He does like first down sign on like the third stringers for the Raiders.
Man, here's a Dude Seriously from Big Marcel. Just that there are pictures on Getty Images now of Nate Diaz and Dr. Phil, and Dr. Phil's probably going, I'm not working tonight, right?
Oh, Nate, what a gem! I want to hang out with Nate one day. I want to hang out with Nate one day. Oh yeah, basketball. Dude, Mike Brownjohn went crazy on.
Mike Beltran is the most personally offended by rule breaking of any referee. Like he just it always feels like he's an assistant principal breaking up a fight between 8th graders at lunch. Anytime he referees a fight.
He's like, you remember the movie Dangerous Minds?
Yes.
When the I think they were like the 2 Spanish guys got in a fight with a white guy, and she like yelling at them like, you promised me you wouldn't do that. Like that's Mike Beltran. Like, we went over the rules. You promised me. Yeah, I don't know where I got that reference from. It's late. I got to go with the UFC commentators. Like, not knowing the rules, like they were like, "Oh yeah, this is going to go to the judge's card," and they're like discussing it, and they're like, "Oh no, it's not. It's got to go to the 3rd round." And I'm like, "That imagine that in the NFL." And in fairness, like the NFL does go to like the rules expert, and he comes in and he like breaks it down. But and then I was sitting there, and I'm like, gonna shit the guys. I'm like, "Oh wait, I watch like I don't know 3,000 fights a year. I don't know how many fights I watch a year." And I don't know the rules either because it's always freaking different. And so anyways, Dude Seriously. Dude Seriously, my boy Boygan Guskov saying that winning in the UFC is better than sex. Dude, seriously? But I'm going to give him a pass. I'm going to ask you, Ben, as you are the top sex symbol in Uzbekistan. Is like sex with Uzbekistan women bad? Are they bad at sex? Like, is that what I'm missing?
I'm sorry. Like, I don't know who hurt you, Bogdan Guskov, but just give it another chance. Dude, you're in Vegas right now. Like, you could get like quality laid pretty easily. Like, just
yeah, UFC win.
yeah.
And I got to go after Brandon Fitzgerald one more time. He starts off the Michael Johnson fight by saying, Michael Johnson, known for doing everything pretty well, besides winning. Like, what? Since when does Michael Johnson do everything well? Like, dude, seriously? All right, let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference. Stocks going up are on the Bulls. Stocks going down on the Bears. You want to be in the Bulls list. You don't want to be in the Bears list. We do it hockey style, kind of 3 stars of the night. Ben, do you mind if I go first?
Go for it.
All right. Let's do Bulls. Let's be positive. And I obviously, because I already clicked the button to say Bulls. My number 3 is a guy. Again, I said I don't believe in him, but I'm seeing the matchmaking, people's suggestions, people like him. I'm gonna go Rodolfo Vieira. He's won 3 out of 4. Yeah, even though he just recently lost to Chris Curtis, I think it was Dominic Cruz. Like, yeah, I completely turned his career around. Okay, actually, let me do another, dude. Seriously, I just thought of this right now. Dominic Cruz will just say things and realize that you can fact checking exists, and you could go to the Sherdog Fight Finder and fact check. He's like, oh, Brad Tavares. You could beat him up for the entire fight, and he won't give up. And dude, he'll constantly come back, and he's a guy that'll knock you out 1 second. Like, he's constantly doing it. And I look, I'm like, dude, seriously? He's got 1/3 round stoppage in his career. Like, dude, seriously? He constantly does it. Anyways, my number 2, not the most fun performance, but just the overall, someone that I don't think a lot of people are hyping coming into the UFC. But Loma Lumumi, she's on a 3-fight winning streak. Continue making believers, continue to be hard matchups. And my number 1, again, he's won 3 out of 4, which is good. He hasn't beat anybody a big name. But when you get a huge walk-off KO like Danny Ige, you're instantly going to get more hype. Give me Danny Ige as the biggest winner tonight. He's my top bull. Who do you got, Ben?
I agree with all of yours. So rather than come up with 3 more of my own, I'll just chip in 2. And they're both going to be people that, fair play to them, I was super down on them ahead of the fights. Bogdan Guskov. You know what? I'm still not totally convinced, but light heavyweight is a division where you can lose early on, lose embarrassingly, fix a few things, and make a run. Like, the example I'll always go to is Nikita Krylov. Like, if you'd asked me in 2011 or whenever he showed up, I would have been like, there's no way this dude ever even comes back to the UFC, and he made it into the top 10. So Bogdan Guskov, the turnaround starts with 1 win. Other one, Ihor Potieria. Jury's out on how well this win will age, but I know one thing, it's going to age a hell of a lot better than the loss would have. He looks like a guy with a future in the UFC at a new weight class. So yeah, 2 guys I really faded on the preview, picked their fights wrong. Fair play to them. Eastern Europe, we out here.
All right, let's go to the Bears, Ben. Give me a big losers.
Oh man, Bears. There's a lot of them. I will throw out there Bruna Brazil. If you'd ask, I picked her to lose anyway. She was an underdog, but if you'd asked me before, I would have said, she's the poor woman's Marina Rodriguez, which isn't great because Rodriguez is kind of frustrating sometimes. She's not even the homeless man's Marina Rodriguez. She looked awful, and she looked awful in a way that I don't see many winnable fights for at 115 in the UFC. Stock down for Jeremiah Wells. Even if I thought he probably won the fight, of the two of them, he's the one that looked 38. And for a guy that I had always been saying, yeah, I know he's in his late 30s, but he's got that up and coming prospect feel. That shine is off. Number one, Joe Pyfer. It may go down as a learning moment. He may come back from this better, but this was a setup for him. I said on the preview, Hermansson is about as favorable a style matchup as you can find for Pyfer this far up the rankings, and he fumbled the ball. Like, it was competitive, it was close, but it turned into basically the only way Hermansson was going to win this fight convincingly. So bad look for Joe Pyfer. He may be back better, but tonight was a stock down moment for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'll give you three. You kind of stole some, so I was kind of scrambling real quick to add some people to mine. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go Trevin Giles, just because he continues, like, everything was going great and still found a way to get absolute starched and get more brain damage, and just obviously not how you wanted it for. And he's gonna have another one of those, like, I was beating that guy. My number two is how about the double leg? I know you don't listen to the broadcast about, but damn, DC was going off about the double leg. I want to try to interpret DC, because I don't think he necessarily was saying double legs don't work, but I think he meant more chain wrestling. Like, you shoot a double leg, and then if you don't blast right through, you go instantly to a single leg in misdirection, or run the pipe. You go run the pipe one way, or a lot of times I like to drop the hip in misdirection. And if people don't know what I'm looking at, you can Google that real quick. Sometimes they call it the Lewis. There's a couple of other things, but most call it just the misdirection, where you're faking one way and then you come back the other direction. Or what he said, you go to the single, they defend the single, and then when they change their weight, that's when you go like a knee tap or straight to a double. So it's just more, you need more chain wrestling, what he was trying to say. But how about this? My number one might surprise you. I'm going to go with the UFC as a big loser tonight. Not even talking about Joe Pyfer losing, but how about this? Take this for a second. You want to become a mainstream sport, correct? You want to be the face of the MMA, Main Street, put it up there with football, anything. Okay. You are in Vegas. On Thursday, there's a big boxing match. They put on Thursday because it's Super Bowl week, and we're going to have this, and there's like concerts going on. It's a big weekend. All these gamblers are coming in, and people, big Kansas City fans, San Francisco fans, just NFL fans, people with money, celebrities, everybody's in town. And you decide to have an event in a closed Apex where pretty much Dr. Phil got in. What are you doing? This is the freaking golden opportunity for you. Have a card, have a big card, right? The Super Bowl, the biggest American event, and I know it's not the biggest sporting event, but the biggest American event, and that's the only one that matters anyways, is coming into town in Vegas, the freaking fight capital of the world, the gambling capital of the world. Have next week's pay-per-view tonight. Have it sold out in the now. Again, maybe you can't do it. I get you probably, like, it might be a little crazy, but you get in there, Las Vegas. Ultimately, you try to do it in the Super Bowl. That'd be pretty cool. But no, that's not gonna happen. Like the arena that the Raiders play. I don't know. But you get in the friggin'. I can't think of what's the Vegas arena, that the big one they use?
T-Mobile Center.
Yeah, T-Mobile Center. You get in the T-Mobile Center the night before the Super Bowl. You get freaking celebrities there. You get all these big ones. You get freaking Joe Montana there. You get freaking somebody from the Kansas City Chiefs there. Something like that. Like, this is the perfect opportunity. You get people come, they gamble, they have a fun time. Oh, there's a big, huge knockout. Oh, wow, MMA's kind of fun. Yeah. What are you doing?
And it looks like the chat largely agrees with you, Ben Cooley. Like, even if you don't make it a pay-per-view, even if you don't want to like worry about the whole T-Mobile Center on the Strip, do you know how many of those casinos have theaters that seat 1,000 to like, seriously, dude, like the Pearl at the Palms seated like 800 people, but the fight nights they used to have there felt huge, and they could get celebrity like high rollers in there. And think of the people they could have had just randomly. Dev pointed out there were more there were more recognizable stars at Power Slap last night.
Yeah. Power slap is your big event. Yeah, power slap. People slapping each other. That'll know what. Like, do you think? Like, imagine you're owner of a restaurant in Vegas. Do you close to the public this weekend? You
No.
go, oh guys, no. Do the strip clubs close this weekend?
Sorry, guys. Timmy's bar mitzvah has had this reserved for 6 months now. Like,
Yeah.
we're not open to the public. Like,
is Jerry Seinfeld not telling jokes tonight, or freaking Matt Franco doing magic, or David Copperfield and shit? Like, no, this is your best opportunity. What are you doing, UFC? Anyways, there you go. Ran over. UFC is my big loser tonight. Ben, what was your grade for the card?
C-. Like,
Oh.
there weren't any really good fights. There were a couple of fantastic knockouts, and like, I mean, the best fight of the night was the main event. Like, there was actual suspense. Learned a few things. Yeah, it was a kind of mediocre fight night card that didn't have. Here's a little look behind the curtain. Normally, as soon as the main event ends, in the Sherdog editorial Slack where we handle our business, there's immediate talk about the rankings. Okay, this happened. Who wants this fighter to go up the rankings? Who wants this fighter to go down? There's no rankings discussion tonight because there are no fighters ranked by Sherdog on this event. That's it.
Hermansson
No, Hermansson was 12th after he lost to Delidze like 15 months ago, and then he just got bumped out by more active fighters who won fights since then.
Okay,
we had a brief talk about
the big argument is, do we put Hermansson somewhere in the lower top 15 after his performance? That's the argument. Okay, that's it. That's it. Go ahead. When did the fucking Super Bowl coming to town?
Yep.
Oh, this is the one you got to freak. You got a big stars coming. Shit. If I'm the UFC, okay, this is why I should just run everything. I should just be the boss of everything. The big card is UFC 300. UFC 300. I would have lined up UFC 300 to be tonight. I would have lined up the pay-per-views a freaking year ago to get UFC 300 tonight. Your biggest card the day before the Super Bowl in the same city. Like, anyways, I'm ranting again. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go C+. I thought the main event was great. I thought that we had some really good fun knockouts. I'll go see like C+. Like, okay. Toughest question always is, who was your listener of the night?
It would be Big Marcel. I mean, Marcel usually drops by and says hi to us. It's rare that he sticks around for the whole show just because, he's over on the dark side of the earth and it's normally very, very late or early in the Netherlands. But tonight, great performance. But I am going to give it to Ben Cooley. He made me laugh early. He was the first and loudest to co-sign with the whole consensus thing. Tough night. Like, these cards, there's heavy competition, but I'm going to give it to Ben Cooley, who's a longtime veteran of these chats, but we hadn't actually seen in a little bit. So good to have you back, bud.
I'm going to go with Big Marcel then. 6:14 a.m. in what do you say, the Netherlands, where I don't know what that place. What is that? Some city in the UK or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give it to Big Marcel. Staying up till 6:14 a.m. Like, staying up that late to watch the fights and then listen to us talk about it, and then still like talk very Americanized, like talking about we're talking about Super Bowl and American grade. I'll give him a Big Marcel. He's our listener. If you don't follow Big Marcel, please do on Twitter. I mean, he's the absolute best. I'll say he's the best.
Yes. Follow
on Twitter. Toughest question. I give you one more. Who's going to win tomorrow night?
Niners.
Wow. Who's the MVP?
That's a better question, man.
All right. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I'll say Taylor Swift's the MVP. No, I'm actually also going to go with the 49ers, and I'm going to say Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, when he's healthy, he's the best at what he does.
So there you go. So I had to justify us putting the Super Bowl in the tags in it. So thank you guys so much. We'll be back next week. UFC 298. Alex Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, plus other cards, pay-per-view. Those are always our biggest ones. So thank you guys for listening. Check out the preview. That'll be out Monday morning, very early. Not that early in Europe, but here in America, it'll be up really early. I said that I always say Europe, but there's other parts, Asia. Maybe I know we had some people reaching out from Australia. So thank you guys for listening. So please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Share. If you comment in the next, if you're watching the next day, let us leave a comment and everything. So see you next time.